Welcome to a new Team CGC 9.8 video. So it's a pretty hot CGC 9.8 comic book market right now, and yeah, I think, I've been seriously collecting the 9.8s for about 3 years. I don't think I've ever saw the market really take off like it has here in the last month or two. But that doesn't mean like every 9.8's exploding or anything like that, because I think right now there's still some opportunities to buy some great books for like fair prices still. And yeah, that's what we'll kind of focus on in this video. Because, the market's so hot right now, there's like countless hot books that you could point at. I think it's, a really kind of prudent and savvy thing right now to look at some great books that really just haven't exploded in price that much. Because certainly, we all know there are a lot of books that have exploded in price. So, ended up getting it to a short list of 7 investment grade CGC 9.8 comics you can still buy right now for a fair price. So yeah, and I think a good list where there's some moderns, there's some older books, kind of just all over the board, some really good ideas. So the first book is a What If #1 from 1977. Yeah, this is a really cool collector item, I think. You get sort of what if Spider-Man was in the Fantastic Four. And also the Spider-Man Fantastic Four origin is retold as well. But for a CGC 9.8 from 1977, I think this one is still a really good price, and I think it works as a great collector item in the CGC 9.8. So we'll look on the census. There's 120 CGC 9.8s in the blue label out there, so you get a kind of one of 120 collector item if you grab this one in the blue label. And 11.7% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. So of all graded copies, 11.7% of them are 9.8s. And this is getting right into the 70s here, 1977. So it's not a super, super rare book for a 1977 book in the 9.8. But that's what still makes it pretty affordable. So, I think this book, there's that Disney Plus series, What If series, that's supposed to be coming out probably in the next year or two, and that was announced maybe 6 months ago. This book kind of popped off of that. I saw, more than normal sell, I would say, and maybe the price is kind of getting up to $400 area. But some of the completed listings we're looking at on eBay, sort of ranging from the 300 to 350 level right now, closer to 350. But I think, in a lull before this Disney Plus TV series comes out, if you can grab this book closer to 300, I think that's a great buy. Yeah, I really love the cover. I think it's just a kind of cool idea, and you do get the origins retold of some classic characters. And yeah, just for, as a value play for like 300 bucks, I just think this is a worthwhile CGC 9.8, being like a 1 of 120 collector item. Yeah, What If #1 from an old book from 1977 that you could still get for a pretty affordable price in this hot environment, and I think it works for sure. And you'll probably enjoy some of the prices you see if this What If really takes off on Disney Plus. So What If #1 from 1977 is one to consider, absolutely. So a second book here that you can buy right now, hopefully for a fair price, is Teen Titans #12. Yeah, Teen Titans #12 in the CGC 9.8. It's the first full appearance of the Batman Who Laughs. So this book's pretty interesting, and it's kind of, I'm warming up to it a little bit more and just realizing actually how, rare it is in the CGC 9.8, because it's, kind of tough to compare different generations. But let's get into the census a little bit, because this is certainly the book to have if you're a big Batman Who Laughs fan. This is kind of the most expensive first full appearance of the Batman Who Laughs here. But on the census, there's 549 CGC 9.8, so really popular modern character. But this book came out in 2017, and the 9.8 ratio is 32.2%. So of all graded copies, only 32.2% of them are CGC 9.8s. And that is really low and rare for a book of this age, again, coming out in 2017. Yeah, just with that low CGC 9.8 ratio, it really stands out as a rare modern book. And yeah, we're talking about sort of a hot market right now for CGC 9.8 comics. You are seeing like, some sort of like volatile prices, I would say, in this, because I did see one go for $500. I think one went over kind of a lick over $500 in the CGC 9.8. But on some of the completed listings, though, there's still quite a few $400 area ones. So I actually think, given the rarity for a modern book, as time goes on, this sort of modern era that we're in now, you know, a lot of times you see that CGC 9.8 ratio for key issues at like 80%. So 80% of all graded copies are 9.8. Whereas this one, 32.2%, I think it's really going to stand out in the sort of modern era. And I mean by modern era is like after 2015, so like the new modern era almost. Because this book, like, just for comparison, Ultimate Follow 4, the first print, that's, you know, $900 right now in the CGC 9.8. That book has about a 32% CGC 9.8 ratio. So this book is about the same rarity as Ultimate Follow 4 in the 9.8, yet it's 5 years newer. So that's, yeah, it's just weird that a new book, when everyone knows to keep their, you know, books in a bag and board, it still has this low CGC 9.8 ratio. So, yeah, you know what? I don't think this one's really taken off, you know, considerably, like, you know, certainly some other issues out there. And I think if you're patient with this one, there is 549 out there in the CGC 9.8, and you try to get it for around 400, maybe even under 400. Like, I think 375 is like a really patient, good price on this Teen Titans 12 first print. And, you know, occasionally people talk about the convention edition. That's like a foil cover that looks a lot like this. Personally, I would just go after this one, especially since it is rare in the 9.8. Like, you're not getting the rarity with the convention edition. So that, yeah, this book, you know, this specific one, the kind of first print non-foil version, is really rare in the 9.8. And since it hasn't exploded, I think, yeah, it really fits good on, you know, a book that you can still buy right now. And, you know, that's all kind of relative because I say it hasn't exploded, but, you know, it's still quite an expensive book. Teen Titans 12, it is probably one of the most expensive villain CGC 9.8s out there, of a first appearance of a villain. But when you look at that CGC 9.8 ratio, it kind of makes sense that it would lead the pack. And I think that's what's going to happen from a modern book that's a first appearance of a villain. Teen Titans 12 is always going to be sort of in the CGC 9.8 is always going to be at the top of the price scale, I think, for those kind of books, because it's the most rare in the CGC 9.8. Yeah, with that 32.2% 9.8 ratio. Yeah, definitely one to consider. Teen Titans 12, first full appearance of the Batman Who Laughs. Yeah, next one here is an Incredible Hulk 271. And yeah, this is a book where, I mean, it's just got a great cover. It's such a fantastic cover. Something about Incredible Hulk books, too. Maybe it's just because, you know, 181 just blew up so much, and it's such an awesome cover. But just having all the Hulk key issues is, you know, something I kind of want from my era anyway, kind of the 80s and 90s. I like to hunt these Hulk key issues. But this is the first comic book appearance of Rocket Raccoon. And for, you know, this book really kind of stands out as almost his first appearance too. The magazine where he first appears overall, which is, I believe it's like 4 or 5 years before this book, he's not on the cover, so there's absolutely no classic cover on it. And then they call him Rocket in the magazine, like he doesn't sort of introduce himself as kind of Rocket Raccoon like in this one. So this really is kind of his, I think of it as more of his first full appearance, and it's really been embraced by collectors, I think. So yeah, Incredible Hulk 271's looking pretty good on the census too. There's a 358 CGC 9.8s out there in the blue label, and CGC 9.8 ratio is 13%. Yeah, so of all graded copies, 13% of them are CGC 9.8s. And you know, 1982 book, we're getting pretty old, but that still is a nice rarity. And also that, you know, one of only 358 of these out there is just a great collector item to have, and that's one of the reasons why I really love 9.8s, is that sort of one-of collector item. So for Incredible Hulk 271, it did some completed listing searches for some research before I got on the video here, and I'm seeing about 600, I saw one sell for $630. That was in an auction in the direct version. This one's a newsstand version too. Yeah, just a really crisp newsstand version, this one. So, you know, 630 is a, you know, you're looking maybe rock bottom. You get lucky, you get it for 600 in the direct. I think newsstand versions, they're still more wanted, although I don't even think they're really more rare during this time period. But yeah, newsstands even I've saw go for as much as 700. Yeah, this I purchased on, sort of on eBay, where I saw it on eBay, but I knew the seller, and he was a Canadian seller that I was familiar with, I'd purchased from before. So I direct messaged him on Instagram and ended up grabbing this for $550, like kind of taking eBay out of the equation. He had it on there for $699.99. So $550 done deal for this one. A perfect copy. So happy with it. If you could pull $550 for a nice one, that would be great. But I think, you know, they're selling for a little over $600 right now. But, yep, you know, in a world of Ultimate Fallout 4 for $900, which is not as rare of a book, and it's way newer, and this one's looking just as cool, you know, I think some of these, you know, books that are kind of $600-700 are, you know, coming into focus a little bit more, some of these classic books. And, yeah, Incredible Hulk 271 fits right into that mold, I think. So next book here is a Batman The Dark Knight Returns, #1. And, yeah, you know, the price is sort of in the last 3-4 months for this book. I'm not really seeing, maybe they heated up a little bit, you know, maybe a 5%-ish, but compared to the rest of the market, not heating up too much for such a classic key issue. So really, I could never recommend enough Batman The Dark Knight Returns #1. It's the first appearance of Carrie Kelly, the Girl Robin, and it's a top 10 graphic novel of all time. It's kind of like the first modern Batman. A lot of people think of it as like just the first modern interpretation of Batman, where, yeah, Batman, he's a little bit older in this, and he's just a complete badass. He doesn't care about anyone's feelings. He's not like suffering with his parents' death in this one. He's just a complete like crime-fighting badass. Frank Miller story. So for this book, on the census, there's a 555 CGC 9.8s out there in the blue label. So 1 of 555 for the top 10 graphic novel of all time. This is the first print too. Yeah, you really kind of want to just get the first print. The second and third prints look the same, so I always say just get the first print if it looks exactly the same. And this is the one that collectors want anyway, and they're paying up for it. So 9.8 ratio, 17.9% of all graded copies are CGC 9.8. So for a Batman book, that's actually really low. You don't see in the 80s single-digit 9.8 ratios for Batman books. So this is a really low, rare ratio for a Batman book, and yeah, that's why it's really expensive in the sort of, when you look at a lot of the Batman books. Looking on a completed listing on eBay, one sold for $760. And, you know, this one maybe has heated up a tad with the Frank Miller signing. Whereas, you know, most of them I think now are really in the $700 area in the CGC 9.8 white pages, whereas a lot of times before, I would see some slip through that were like in the 500s, maybe. Maybe, I think even, you know, in that lull 6 to 8 months ago that the market had there, I think I saw one of these go in the 400s. It was like $440 or something for a CGC 9.8 white pages. But, you know, given how classic this book is, and, you know, even a year or 2 or 3 ago, this book was always kind of $700, $800. Like, it heats up. It's heated up at certain times, and I think even with lady superheroes there about 2-3 years ago, everyone was into the lady superheroes. So Carrie Kelly, you know, people were buying this book just for that, and I think it lulled a little bit, but now it's coming back, but maybe not as hard as some of these other hot books. And for that completed listing, seeing that for $760, maybe if you're luckier, you get it closer to $700. Again, in a world of Batman Beyond #1, that's like $900. Ultimate Fallout 4 is $900. I mean, I think this is just as classic of a book, probably even more classic, probably even a better collector item, and you can get it for a couple $100 cheaper. So, yeah, I think that's why this video was appropriate, but certainly I think this is one to consider right now. Yeah, such a, I mean, if you're a Batman fan, it's one to get. And, you know, for me, my copy has a little bit of an inner well scuffing, if you noticed, on the CGC slab. There's some scuffing, and it kind of shows a lot on this simple cover. So I kind of want another one, to be honest. Like, I just want one that looks perfect in the case with no inner well scuffing to kind of match my... the book is absolutely perfect, but the well's a little scuffed up, which kind of annoys me. So look out for the inner well scuffing if you are purchasing a Batman The Dark Knight Returns #1, because, yeah, the prices can vary because a lot of the cases look pretty knacked up because, again, it is such a simple cover, you really notice it. So next book to consider buying right now for a fair price. Amazing Spider-Man 298. Yeah, so Amazing Spider-Man 298, it kind of sticks out for me in the sort of price range, and given it's kind of a pretty iconic issue. So yeah, $2.98 is the first time Todd McFarlane drew Spider-Man. So kind of the first Todd McFarlane Spider-Man in this one, and it's the first issue of his Amazing Spider-Man run, which, I mean, yeah, McFarlane just transformed Spider-Man, brought him into the modern age, and he did him in a completely different way, and kind of captivated people, including me, when I was really young. So yeah, but Amazing Spider-Man 298, it looks really good on the census as well. So there's a 689 CGC 9.8s out there in the blue label. Kind of a 1 of 689. 13% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. So of all graded copies, only 13% of them are 9.8. So a really tough white cover. And, you know, like, this is a late 80s book. Well, this one's an early 80s book, but it has a 13% CGC 9.8 ratio as well. So they're equally as rare, but this book's like, you know, 5, 6, 7 years newer. So that kind of gives you an idea of, you know, how rare this book is in the CGC 9.8. And when you look at the price, you know, it all kind of lines up where, yeah, you know, the price this is a really good, I think, kind of a value pick right now. And certainly one that hasn't exploded that much. You know, I'm maybe seeing some firmer prices, but I wouldn't call it an explosion in this issue. But yeah, for some of the completed listings, I'm seeing them right around $300. So I think there was one that was like $314. 305, you know, normally 6 to 8 months ago, because this is a book where I mentioned I wanted another one, to be honest. Yeah, I just love this book. It's nostalgic to me too. This is one I had when I was like 7 or 8. You know, this is the one I could afford. I couldn't afford Amazing Spider-Man 300. Amazing Spider-Man 298 was kind of my grail back then. But given the, you know, the hot environment and the prices, because I was sort of used to this one going in that 6 to 8 months ago for like $260, $275 in an auction kind of thing. So, you know, maybe it's heated up 5% here, where in an auction it's going a little over $300, but I still think it's absolutely worth it, given that it's pretty rare on the census, as I said. So yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 300, and yeah, it's a, you know, an important issue with McFarlane doing Spider-Man first. Cool cover. I really love the color. A bit of a love it or hate it cover. I think some people don't really like it. I tend to like the original. I think the homages are a little overdone on the 298, but the original just looks great. You get a great cover. And pretty rare in the CGC 9.8 with the 13% CGC 9.8 ratio. So one to consider that, yeah, you know, hopefully you get it right around that 300. Maybe if it's a really nice one, you pay up a little bit more, or even in a newsstand, which is quite rare during that late 80s generation, I would say that would be closer to 400 in this environment. That would be a really cool one to get. Yeah, you don't see those very often. I would be very tempted to kind of insta-buy if I ever saw one of these in the newsstand version. Okay, next book here is an Iron Man 282. So this is one I do not have in either the raw or the CGC 9.8. Many times have I watched one and thought of bidding, but, you know, it just seems this is one where it's not just perfectly centered for me for some reason. Like, something annoys me about it, so I just don't end up pulling the trigger. But Iron Man 282 is, I was looking at prices, and they're still pretty stable from sort of what I was used to from prior price history. So this is the first full War Machine. You got a great cover, obviously, and there's 551 CGC 9.8s in the blue label. And 40.8% is the CGC 9.8 ratio. So not particularly rare. Of all graded copies, 40.8% of them are 9.8s. And this is an early 90s book, so kind of a typical of an early 90s book. You know, well printed, not the rarest on the census, but looks really cool and can get it for a pretty great price. So, and this one definitely looks cool. And yeah, prices for this book. I saw an auction. It was like one that ended a week ago for $164, I think it was. That's like right in the range there. You know, if you get lucky, closer to 150. Maybe if it's looking just fantastic, people maybe pay up to like 180, 190 possibly for this book right now. And then, yeah, again, this is one where the last, you know, the price history here in the last 6 months is about the same. Like, I remember them going for, yeah, 160 maybe in an auction about a year ago, a year or two ago even. So this is one that definitely, I don't think has really heated up at all. You can get right in there if you're patient, get it for a real good fair value, and it's a great 90s cover to have. Yeah, so Iron Man 282 is one to consider with, you know, Maybe not looking the rarest, but that makes it affordable, and it's super cool. Yeah, this is, again, one I've almost purchased in the past, and yeah, I probably will if you know, from a favorite seller popped up, really centered, was looking good in a new case. You know, that's one I'd put a competitive bid in for. Yeah, Iron Man 282, first full appearance of War Machine. Okay, and the last book here, got through 6. Last one here is the 7th. It's a classic comic book. Yeah, this is a really cool one. I'm glad I thought of it. Black Panther #1. It's a Jack Kirby cover and story. A really classic book. I believe it's from 1977 as well. Yeah, 1977. Black Panther #1. This is a book I was pretty surprised, you know, at the prices. I think they're still affordable for what this book is. So there's a 214 CGC 9.8s out there. So you get a 1 of 214 collector item. And even better, a 6.1% CGC 9.8 ratio. So of all graded copies, 6.1% of them are CGC 9.8. If you look at that What If #1 book, that was a 1977 book as well. That was 11.7%. So the lower the better. So of all graded copies, 6.1% of Black Panther #1s are CGC 9.8. A classic book from 1977. Love the cover. And this is one that, you know, with an Ultimate Follow and the Batman Beyonds going around that $900. I was seeing a completed listing for this one at $725. And, you know, if you're a Black Panther fan and, you know, maybe you already have the first appearance in Fantastic Four, or, you know, maybe that's just out of your era, which is, you know, kind of my issue. I don't really like to get into that era too much because I just don't remember them from when I was a kid, those books. I think this is just a classic book. You get Jack Kirby doing the cover and story. And for $725 in a world of $900 CGC 9.8 Batman Beyond #1s and Ultimate Follow 4s, I think, yeah, Black Panther #1 is one to consider. A 1 of 214 collector item. And yeah, that really low CGC 9.8 ratio, that's nice and rare. So yeah, I think this, you know, it's almost a timing issue, or, you know, a timing thing with Black Panther #1, because when the new MCU Black Panther movie comes out, I think, you know, this book will heat up again, probably go right around $1,000. And yeah, I was sort of used to seeing this book sort of pushing 1,000. Certainly when I was into the hobby, to me, this was just a really expensive book that was hard to get under $1,000. And that really happened because Black Panther movie, and he was in the Avengers Endgame and all the Avengers movies and did really well. Actor did awesome playing Black Panther. So when that happens, this book really heated up. But right now, I think it's a good spot to kind of be savvy, and the timing's right for Black Panther #1. Yeah, completed listing seen for $725. Maybe get lucky a little bit under 7 possibly, but I think that's a bang-on fair value pretty much. $725. Again, seeing these, you know, 2 years ago when Avengers Endgame and all that was out, these ones really pushing $1,000 basically. Yeah. So a classic book from 1977. That is a great alternative, I think, that you can buy in this environment right now at a fair price and sort of avoid some of these really, really hot key issues in the CGC 9.8 right now. Okay, so get into some quick top picks. How about that? So Teen Titans 12 here, for a modern book, is just really starting to come to, you know, the forefront of my mind as being like a really great modern book, because, you know, it's not as old as even Ultimate Follow 4. Like, it's not as old as Batman Beyond #1. So, you know, for the 9.8 ratio on this to be the same as Ultimate Follow 4, which in itself is a pretty rare key issue, but this book to only come out in 2017, it's just a bit of an anomaly. So I think, you know, hopefully closer to 400 for Teen Titans 12. You know, hopefully you like the character. I really love the Batman Who Laughs. I think he's awesome. And I think there's so much potential with the Batman Who Laughs. But for a modern book, yeah, it just compares so well. And there's a lot of reasons to think that this will lead the charge of, like, you know, modern CGC 9.8 first appearances. Because, again, yeah, I don't know of any book that's kind of come out, you know, let's call it after 2015, 2016. That has a 32.2% CGC 9.8 ratio. Yeah, most of them, it's like 70% of all graded copies are 9.8. 80% of all graded copies are 9.8. But For Teen Titans 12, 32.2% of all graded copies are 9.8, and that just makes it really rare. So second top pick, Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. Oh yeah, like that. I mean, Batman Beyond #1. I love that book, and I love Batman Beyond cartoons, but I don't think it's as classic of a book as Batman: The Dark Knight Returns. And you know, maybe this is more printed, and Batman Beyond came out during that comic book recession, so it's not very well printed. I get that, but overall, a sort of iconicism and just a classic investment grade CGC 9.8 comic book. As long as this book's less money than Batman Beyond #1, I'll be buying Batman: The Dark Knight Returns for hopefully around $700. But yeah, I can't recommend that one enough if you're a Batman fan or just, you know, key issue hunting in the 80s. Like, that's just a huge Batman key issue to want to have. Mutant SpiderMan 298 is another one of my top picks. And for a lot of those reasons we talk about, it's pretty rare on the census for a late 80s book. First Todd McFarlane Spider-Man. As a big Todd McFarlane fan, if you are a big Todd McFarlane fan, that's one to want. And yeah, I had that nostalgic connection too, and yeah, I really want another one, to be honest. 298, maybe a newsstand, hopefully if I get lucky, if that pops up. And my last top pick, Incredible Hulk 271. Yeah, pretty rare on the census, amazing cover, you know, such an eye-appealing, great cover. And sort of those reasons because, you know, that magazine first appearance of Rocket Raccoon didn't have a good cover, so this really is becoming the go-to collector, and it's his first comic book appearance of Rocket Raccoon. And again, you know, completed listings going for $630, with a lot of some modern books, again, some hot books going for $900 in the CGC 9.8, or over $1,000, some of them. A lot of these books that seemed expensive before are really starting to come into focus, and Incredible Hulk 271 is one of them. Alright, that'll be all for the top picks, and that's the whole video, yeah. So, yeah, you know what, I think concluding up, I did want to make that point where, and I sort of made it throughout the video a little bit, but, you know, a lot of these comic books, they're great investment grade books, but now they're less priced than Ultimate Fallout 4, Batman Beyond #1 in the CGC 9.8. So that just, you know, I'm all into like comparing books, and you know, a lot of times over time the comparisons kind of come back in line, and I think, you know, right now we're certainly in a hot phase for, you know, those comic books that are $900 in the CGC 9.8. Those are really hot comic books, so kind of recommend to lay off those and go with some of these just classic investment grade books that you can get for hundreds of dollars less than, you know, some of these hot CGC 9.8 comic books right now. So that's what this video is all about. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, I invite you to join the team and subscribe to Team CGC 9.8. Yeah, I'd love to have you on our comic book collecting and comic book investing team. Hit the bell to get all the latest notifications. Add me on Instagram and Twitter as well. Check out our archives of videos. Tons of ideas in the archives of videos. But yeah, thanks so much for watching today, and yeah, really, was really happy with this list. Again, like some modern, some old ones, and just a good mixture, and yeah, a good list of some books that in the CGC 9.8 right now, I think you can buy at a fair price, and that's harder and harder to do, it seems, every day with a lot of these, you know, comic books getting hotter and hotter almost, it seems. So, thanks again for watching. Message me on Instagram if you do have any questions, and I'll see you on the next one.